Are you ready to make the most of your oil and gas mineral rights? Welcome to the Mineral Rights Podcast. Get the knowledge and resources you need to manage your minerals and royalties. Here is your host, Matt Sands.
Hello and welcome to the Mineral Rights Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Sands, and I'm joined by my co-host, Justin Williams, and we're here to help you make the most of your minerals and royalties. And in this video, we're going to show you how to use the Arkansas Oil and Gas Commission website. And this is another video in the series that we've been doing on all of the major oil and gas producing states and showing you how to use the website to find and locate your minerals and royalties to see if there are wells you should be getting paid on, or if there's any oil and gas activity nearby that could indicate that you might be in for some additional royalties. And if you're listening to this episode on the podcast, be sure to check out the accompanying video on my YouTube channel. Just search for Matt Sands Mineral Rights, or you can go to mineralrightspodcast.com, look for this episode, and click on the video there. So, Justin, we've been playing around with the Arkansas Oil and Gas Commission website, and it's a little bit clunky, but the information, if you're persistent, is there for you to find.
You nailed it, Matt. Yeah, we've spent some time kind of digging through it, but like we've said, it's good that all the information is there. You just kind of work for it. And Matt, something to mention as we go into this really assumes that you have a foundation in mineral rights management. So if you don't have that foundation, be sure and take a look at the course that Matt put together for managing your minerals. It'll help to lay that foundation. And you can find that at mineralrightspodcast.com/courses. And so, Matt, let's dive into this. There's always the basic questions that mineral owners are looking to answer, like what is production? Arkansas has a landscape that features several oil and gas fields, including Smackover Field, known for its substantial oil reserves, the Fayetteville Shale, a major player in natural gas production, and Arkoma Basin, a significant source of both oil and gas, Matt. And lately, Arkansas has been in the news for their lithium exploration that's going on. That's a new part to add to Arkansas's repertoire.
Yeah, that's right. And we've covered that in previous episodes, most recently in episode 229, which was Mineral Rights News for January of 2024, where we highlighted the article that talked about how ExxonMobil is beginning lithium exploration in southwest Arkansas. And in particular, the area of interest is in Columbia County, near the town of Magnolia. And the article that we talked about highlights the Susie number 1 well, which will show you how to find that on the Arkansas Oil and Gas Commission website, so you can figure out if your interests are near that ExxonMobil activity. And because this is something that's, I think, front and center in the minds of Arkansas mineral and royalty owners. And in fact, just in last week, I got an email from a listener, and they said, we have mineral rights in southern Arkansas. We draw a small check from Albemarle, who's an operator in that area. How do we know if we'll be part of the Smackover formation? And so that's what we'll go ahead and show people how to answer that question today, Justin, because I think that's probably top of mind. If you have minerals in Arkansas, is this lithium boom that's going on, do I stand to benefit from it?
You said it, Matt. And on Arkansas side, it looks like they're kind of siloing the information. There's a different map for the lithium wells, and then there's a map for the oil and gas production. So something to note there.
Yeah, that's something to note. And I think let's go ahead and dive in, and I'll show how to use this website. First of all, when you get to the Oil and Gas Commission website, this is what you'll see. It's pretty straightforward, kind of an older design website. And I think it's because of that, it's kind of slow. I don't know how they've designed it, but you have to be persistent. So get a fresh cup of coffee when you go to use this website. But Justin, the easiest way to find information oftentimes is by just searching on a map. And a lot of times, really, all that we know is the legal description of our property, which is basically the address on the surface of the earth that allows us to identify where our minerals and royalties are relative to that oil and gas production. And the first thing we'll want to do is pull open that map. And so when you go to the Oil and Gas Commission, you go to lease and well data. There's an RBDMS data map. But before we dive into that, I want to highlight a couple of things because they do have a separate section just on the lithium activity. There's a really good frequently asked questions that you can view, and it asks about formation depth, what are they doing, and it has some really good information there. The thing that you'll see, and I think this is really important as you're viewing the data, because the data will tell you a story, and unless you know how to decipher that data, you won't understand what's going on. So with these lithium wells, oftentimes, especially right now, they're in exploration phase. So what that means is the operator may apply for an exploratory drilling permit. And that is just to allow them to go in and drill into that Smackover formation, which in this case is about 8,000 or 9,000 feet deep, produce that brine water, and then see if the lithium is in a high enough concentration for it to be economic for them to go to like a full field development, to build the infrastructure, to take that water to facility to separate out the lithium from the water, re-inject it into a saltwater disposal well, and do all the things they need to do to commercially produce the lithium and extract it. With these exploratory drilling permits, they basically allow them to go in and test, and then that well must be plugged within 30 days after testing. They can apparently receive additional approvals from the Oil and Gas Commission to transition from the exploratory drilling to lithium production well. And there's some steps they have to go through in order to get that. And so that's important to know, because I think when we were looking through the data, we're like, well, why is this well plugged and abandoned already? I thought this was a lithium production well. That's the reason. So it's one of the things you'll have to kind of figure out as you go through this. So Justin, do you want to walk through this lithium development map? Because I think this is probably the next place that people will want to go. It just highlights the wells that are related to lithium, and that's excluding the oil and gas and excluding those other fields. It highlights the main areas where they're going to go in and do lithium exploration. So the first place you'd want to go is to the Arkansas Oil and Gas Commission website. You can see the address up here. It's just aogc.state.ar.us. And, or you can just Google Arkansas Oil and Gas Commission, and it'll take you right here. A couple of things that we'll go through, and we'll show you, like with the other state oil and gas commission websites, how to use the map interface to locate and find relevant information about your wells. But before we do that, there's a special section on the website for lithium. And this is important because, as we've talked about in those previous news episodes, Arkansas is getting a lot of attention right now for companies who are exploring for lithium that they can produce from a brine. So basically from water, and they'll separate out the lithium and re-inject the water back into the under the ground. And that focus is really centered around the Smackover Formation in southwest Arkansas. Now, they talk about some of the relevant hearings that have occurred relevant to the actual lithium production. There's whole sections on information around frequently asked questions, which you can go and look. And one of the things you'll see is that lithium can be produced from the Smackover Formation, which is around 8,000 or 9,000 feet deep. Again, they basically produce salt water up that has high concentrations of lithium. They extract out the lithium, and then they re-inject the water. And the interesting thing to note is when companies are first going in and exploring for lithium, they're obtaining exploratory drilling permits. And this will be relevant here when we show you a couple of these wells and the information that's available. Because as we were playing around with this, we saw the Exxon had permitted this well that's mentioned in the article. And when we look at that well, it looks like they've already plugged and abandoned that well. So I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. Maybe it wasn't successful. Well, it turns out that there are exploratory permits would actually include the requirement to plug the well within 30 days after testing is complete. So basically, a company will go and drill the well, produce that brine, see what kind of lithium is there, figure out if it's going to be economic to drill more wells in the area, and so forth. And they do that because it's expensive to go in and build the infrastructure, the saltwater disposal wells, the water pipelines, the water facilities to extract the lithium, and all of that. And so what they're doing right now is going in and poking holes in different areas to sort of assess the formation and see how much lithium is there. You may see some of these wells that have been plugged right after they were drilled. That doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't lithium there. It's just that maybe at this stage in the game, they're in the exploration mode. There aren't facilities that are there to do anything with the produced water to actually go and process it. They can actually get additional approvals to transition from exploratory drilling to lithium production wells, but there are certain things that might need to happen in order for that to occur. Now, the thing that I want to show, Justin, is this lithium map, which is really useful if you have minerals in Arkansas and want to know, is your property going to be in an area where they're doing a lithium extraction?
You said it, Matt. And this map is pretty quick loading, and it shows you most of the basic information you need to know, which is like the well name, the operator who's involved, all of the different facts that you would expect here. And it looks like, Matt, there are several of them, some in Lafayette County, some in Columbia County. And then they have this sectioned out into different areas. So they have a map key here that says part of this area is the Standard Lithium, Exxon Salt Works lease area, so on and so forth. So it's giving some pretty good information.
Yeah, pretty good information. The well that was featured in that article is this Susie #1 well. And when I first pulled this up, I saw the operator was Saltworks LLC. And I thought, that's interesting. I thought ExxonMobil was the operator. Well, what operators do oftentimes is they may have a shell company that they'll go in and lease acreage under. So, for example, the mineral owners in Lafayette and Columbia County within this green box were probably approached by a landman saying, I'm with Saltworks LLC. We're doing lithium exploration in your area. We'd like to obtain a lease. Well, when you hear Saltworks LLC, you're like, okay, well, this is just a small company. They're doing some tests. It's probably not that big a deal. So the lease offers are probably going to be less competitive, because if word got out that ExxonMobil was in the area actually leasing, then everybody and their brother would have come in and tried to compete with them and driven the lease bonus rates and the terms higher. So I think that's a strategic move that some operators will use, is using a different name for the company until they're got a significant leasehold. And then they'll announce, okay, we have an operation in this area. We're drilling test wells like what Exxon did last year after they'd already leased up all this acreage. And so Saltworks LLC is really just a subsidiary of ExxonMobil, because they're the ones ultimately driving the work in this area. So that's something to note. And similar with some of these other companies, even though they may be showing up as Arkansas Lithium Corporation, you have to do a little bit of research and see, are there other companies behind this that might be driving some of this exploration work? But you can see who the operators are. You can see where the existing wells are. Some of these orange dots here show some of these lithium wells. If you find one of interest, you can note the API number, the first set of digits that you need to worry about. And if you wanted to search for this particular well, we could copy that API number and then go in and we'll show you how to use that information in the actual database to find production data, all the information about the permits and all of that. So this map is sort of a standalone map. It doesn't appear to be linked to the other data. So if you find one of these wells, like for example, this Susie #1, let's say if we had minerals that were in this section, which happens to be in 17 South, 21 West, Section 33, which we can see here. And we want to find out what's going on with this Susie 1 well. What's the status? Have they started producing lithium? All of those kinds of things. We'll have to go to that other database. And so we'll show you how to do that as well. So, Justin, it's really cool that they put this together because it shows you at a glance. It sort of cuts through the noise of all the other wells that you would sort of be focused on and be hard to find these lithium wells, because there really aren't that many of these recent lithium extraction wells to focus in on. And so if we're wanting to really focus in on those, it's nice that they've separated that out.
You said it, Matt. And it makes this much quicker to load and easier to kind of go through, as opposed to the map that contains all the oil and gas data.
That's right. So we'll flip over to this Arkansas Oil and Gas Commission well database. The way that we would go and find this, if we go back to this lithium map and we go to the Oil and Gas Commission, it's under lease and well data, and it's RBDMS data map. So this is kind of confusing the way they have this laid out. You won't want to go to maps and then GIS data, because that's going to take you to a section where you can download the data to put into your own GIS application to be able to view and analyze it. What we're interested here is just a real quick and easy way on a website to do that for us. And so this RBDMS data map is what you're going to want to go to. So again, that's under lease and well data, RBDMS data map. And once we pull that up, it'll bring up the whole state of Arkansas and start to slowly refresh. It's pretty slow. So again, get your cup of coffee, take a sip while you're waiting for this to load. And in the meantime, if we know which well we're going to be searching for, let's say that, again, we're interested in that ExxonMobil Susie #1 well, copy the API number, again, that number I showed you from that Lithium, and you can either search, you could search by well name, so you could search by Susie if that's all you knew. After it goes through and figures out in the database, you'll be able to find that Susie brine well. Again, you can do it that way, or you can actually search by the API number, and really, you can get rid of the trailing zeros after the last number and the dashes as well. Some parts of this database don't like it when you put the dashes in. So search by the API number, and again, it'll find the Susie number 1 brine well. So Justin, as we were looking through this, what sort of stands out to you as the most important information you're going to want to look for when you see your well?
Looking to see if there's current activity is always the first question. Is there production going on, and when was that production? And that'll kind of dictate whether you're entitled to or may be entitled to royalties on that.
That's exactly right. So zooming in here, we want to look at maybe some of these other layers. They have information. You can see the sections, which is always nice, and you can see the outline of the section relative to the well. So one of the things you want to turn on are the township and range in the section. And again, you can see where the well is relative to that section. Within here, you can see relevant information about this Susie number 1. It shows you the well status. It has information about the township, section, and range. Basic information about the construction. So it'll show that it was spudded. In other words, they started drilling. It's a vertical well. It has the permit number. You have under permits, again, more information about that and the permit approval dates and so forth. It can be found here. Interestingly enough, like we talked about, there is the status just showing up as spudded. So we don't know if there's actually any production yet, and we'll have to go to a separate screen to see if there's production. One of the things that you'll notice probably, and I don't think this is my browser because we've looked at this with a couple different browsers, but there's some issues with the website. For example, it's not uploading the background base map. For some reason, it decided to show a broken image. So I don't know if there's an issue within their server. It's too slow. It stopped updating and just left it blank. So you might have to refresh the screen a couple of times to get that to work. But just real basic information that's available here, Justin. Really need to dive in a little bit deeper through another search, right?
You said it, man. Yeah, to get your production data and some other information, you really have to go back to the record search system for Arkansas, and they have a way to kind of navigate everything by the API and the lease number where all that data is held. And Matt, something to mention on this map too, some of the older wells, as we looked them up, they don't have longitude and latitude information. So it's absolutely possible that you may have to kind of dial in by your townships and section to find those wells if they're older and don't have that information associated.
Yeah, depending on the age of the well, it may or may not show up when you search for it in other applications. We were trying to find a couple of wells that Jake's great uncle had operated back in the day, and searching by the API number highlighted a well in Canada. So not sure what's going on there. Normally that is pretty much the tried and true method to identify a well. But what we'll do is we'll show you how to use the Arkansas Oil and Gas Commission website and then highlight how you can find some of this same information on Well Database, which has a free account that you can apply for to view well production information and well data across the country, so not just Arkansas. So to dive into the production data, let's say we wanted to figure out if this well was producing yet or what was going on, we have to go to this lease and well data tab. And basically, this is a separate standalone application. Unfortunately, they're not linked together as far as I could tell, a way to click on a tab or a link in the map to bring you to the production data. So you'll have to copy either the permit number, which is right down here, which is a 5-digit number, and then you can actually paste that in. That's one way to go for it. Or again, you can copy and paste over the API number. So again, this found it through the permit number, the Susie well, and through the API number, I can search as well. But keep in mind that if I search without taking out the dashes, it will not find anything. And you have to take out the dashes in the number itself, and then it'll be able to locate the well. So it doesn't tell you that, but that is something that we found that is a little bit unique about this particular application. So once we pulled up the Susie number 1 well, we can see the status is actually plugged and abandoned. And so this would be concerning if we didn't already know that these lithium exploration wells are only allowed to do a production test for 30 days before they have to be plugged and abandoned. So this doesn't necessarily mean that ExxonMobil didn't find lithium in commercial quantities. It just is sort of the stage in that exploration. They did the initial test and did the controlled production, and then it was plugged and abandoned. Now, I don't know if they are going back and now applying for a production permit. That is something that is sort of conflicting information here under the well history. It says the completion type. Actually, yesterday, we were recording this on March 18th, 2024. It says on the 17th, it had a status of controlled production, but the wellbore status is in plugged and abandoned. So it could be that they're going through the process to apply to make that a normal producing well. But for now, it is plugged and abandoned. Now, if we go to production records, it shows there's no production data available, which I guess is not surprising since the well is plugged and abandoned. There aren't any production test data. So again, not sure if that's because this is a brine supply well that this is showing up that way. We did search for a few oil wells and certainly will show you a production data for that. So I think that may be something to show to give you a feel just for if there is production data, what's that going to look like and what do you do with that type of information. We're going to reload this page so that it shows up correctly again. Okay, again, we're going to search in on this area down in southwest Arkansas, which is where the Smackover Formation is. Historically has had some oil production. It's more recently that they're going in and just focusing on the lithium for the lithium-ion batteries. So while we're waiting for the Data Explorer website to load, I'll show you another way how you can actually search for the well by legal description. So again, in this case, we know that we are looking for section 33 and township 17 south, range 21 west. If I click apply, it will run a query, and sure enough, there's the Susie #1 well. So that's one way you can search, is just by entering the legal description. It'll take you directly to the area of interest, and then it'll show you all of the wells that are within that section. If you didn't know the legal description, if we only knew the well name, let's say, maybe you've inherited some minerals, you're getting some small royalty checks, you lost your deed, you don't have your oil and gas lease. Some of the counties in Arkansas aren't super user-friendly, or maybe the records aren't available online, but you want to know, okay, where is this well located? Are there other wells within that lease that I maybe should be aware of to try to figure out if I should be getting paid on them or not? That would be the way that, again, you can just go in and search by well. And when you first go into this, it will just have this search screen here, which I think searches across multiple tabs. But if you want to do this advanced search, you can search by API, you can search by well name, by well status, by operator, all of those criteria. And that's one way you can go and search and locate your well. When you look at the actual index, or when you look at the layers here, you can see the different types of well symbols, and they don't show the well status like some of the other state websites, which is unfortunate, because that way you could easily see visually if the well is producing or if it's been plugged and abandoned. What it does show you is if it's a gas well, an oil well, an injection well, or an other well. And again, a lot of these lithium wells show up as other. So that is one thing you'll have to kind of play around with and see. But if you had, let's say, oil production, like we said, we were going to want to find out whether a well is going to be producing right now. Should we be receiving royalties for any oil production? We can try to find one here that is actually producing status. This is an old historical field, so may not be a lot. Okay, here we found one that is operated by Brightburn Operating. It's the Rosewood Resources 10 and well number 2. And it says that it's active. We can look at the useful dates here, and sure enough, it shows that it was drilled, looks like around 1995. So this well's been around a while. This is a good one, Justin. If we wanted to go find the production data, let's use this permit number, which I'm going to copy, and go back to the lease and well data. Search by permit/API. You can search by either of those. And sure enough, this well, the Rosewood Resources 10 shows up, and we can find the production records. So if you're receiving royalties on oil and gas wells, this is a way that you can go in and audit, make sure that you're getting paid correctly for any given month. And so what you can do, for example, if we had some royalties that we're receiving for the Rosewood Resources 10, and we look at our royalty check and see there was gas that we were paid for, we can see that they produced 3,344 MCF in December of 2023. Legend is up here. If you want to download the production data, you can do that here into an Excel file, which you can then go in and compare what you were paid on your royalty check to what was produced for that month. And that can help you get to the bottom of and make sure that you're getting paid correctly. The number you'd be wanting to look for to compare against your royalty check is this gas sales MCF. Sometimes they may use some of that gas for some of the production equipment on site, so they may produce a little bit more than was actually sold. In this case, it looks like the same amount was produced as was sold, so those two match. But in some cases, if there's a difference, you want to look for the sales data. Justin, this is a kind of fundamental thing that any mineral royalty owner needs to be able to do to figure out and make sure they're getting paid correctly.
Yep, absolutely. And though we have to kind of work for it, the information is there. One thing that we haven't seen or talked about is plat maps, which could be something that we absolutely need to get to confirm our ownership.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that is definitely something that we recommend having a copy of. And that would be part of the actual application for the permit to drill. We're looking for information related to that permit number. And so, Justin, that's a great point. In order to figure out where the well is and what area is actually being produced from and what minerals are being pulled together, we have to go to that plat map and potentially the oil and gas pooling orders. But first, let's go ahead and go to well file search. And where you're going to want to go to that is under document imaging and then well file cabinet. At the very bottom, you'll see DocuWare well files cabinet. If you click on that link, it'll bring open this search window. That last well we looked at was permit number 35793. So I'll search for that. And sure enough, it comes up with a list of scanned documents relative to that well. What I'm looking for is the well permit. That is a Form 2. And this one that you'll see here, and I have to pull up my other window. So that well permit itself is something that has the details about the number of acres in the unit. In this case, it's 239 acres. So determine your decimal interest in that well. You would take the number of net acres divided by the number of acres in the drilling unit, in this case 239, multiply that by your lease royalty rate, and that will tell you what your decimal interest should be if you had an interest in this Rosewood Resources 10 well. Now, the most important image that we're going to look for is this plat, and if you look at the top, it'll allow you to flip through the various pages, sort of see what's going on here, and again, this will show you the outline of that lease. So as you can see here, it's covering only a portion of Section 10, not the entirety of it, so it's 239 acres. Most typical sections are 640 acres, so this is not quite half the section where this is drawing oil from. So if you had minerals that were in this area, then you would be entitled to royalties on this well. This is the type of information you have to go and dig through. Unfortunately, in the Arkansas Oil and Gas Commission website, there are multiple sections you have to become familiar with in order to pull up those records. Like we said, production data is really important for getting paid royalties. You can compare that to your royalty checks to make sure that it's correct. And the other thing is you should at least at one point go in and download copies of these documents like your permit, things like that, so that you can go in and have those on file and have that record to compare for future. There's tools here that allows you to print it. As you click on this little caret at the top, go to tools, and there's a print icon and allow you to save as a PDF file on your computer. So Justin, what are some of the other major questions that you'd want to go and find out if you had an interest in some minerals in Arkansas?
I think the other thing that we haven't really talked about is permit notices and then sundry notices. What is the activity currently going on? We've looked at the well plats. So really the question left is, what is the activity that's happening?
That's a great point where you can sort of browse through some of these different files, going back to actual directory of files that are available. If we were to click on some of these different PDF files, there's inspection records that you'll see that you can click on, and you'll just have to sort of click through these and it'll pull up windows. And for example, just show you this one here, which is a gas well back pressure test. And these are useful documents because they give you a feel for how they're actually operating the well. It tells you information like the pressure, the actual orifice size. So if they have a choke on the well, it may have some of the information about the gas gravity and so forth. So just some information that you can figure out how much pressure is on this well, well, how does that change over time as the well depletes the oil and gas under the ground? Is it still have a good amount of drive to it? In this case, it's producing a 1,000 MCF per day, which is a fair amount of gas. And so those are things you can see that change over time, just to give you a feel for how that well is performing. And to your point, Justin, some of the things like sundry notices. So if they have maintenance that maybe they were doing or things like that, that will post it, and change of operator notices will show up at the gas purchasers. So that is something you'll see as well. Like in this particular document is a Form 4, which is a notice of change in gas or oil purchaser. So this might be relevant if you're actually getting the royalty checks from the purchaser itself instead of the operator, which may happen in some cases. And so there's interesting information here that you can kind of keep track of as these things change over time. This is all the official record of those events. Yeah, be familiar with that section of the website. Again, that's in the well file cabinet. Also, there's well logs, which not as useful for a mineral or royalty owner, but it just can show you the potential, some of the technical things that they did when they logged the well, and tells you which zones maybe had oil and gas, and if you knew how to interpret them. It's pretty technical, hard to understand, but that information is there often as well. So yeah, other information you may want to be able to search at some point is to go in and find copies of pooling or spacing orders. Again, that can inform you more information about what the operator's plans are, the number of wells that are permitted in a section, and so forth, as that can change over time. Now, one thing I want to highlight before we wrap up is well database. So we've showed you how to use well database for a couple of other states. And Justin, I think particularly in the case of Arkansas, this is one to become familiar with, just because that Arkansas website is pretty difficult to use, at least for linking production data and some of the main characteristics of the well. That is something that you can find on well database. And so again, if we were looking for this Brightburn operating and I wanted to search for the API number, I can go to well database, which again, you can register for a free account. You can't download data with the free well database account or the well files, but you can at least view the relevant information about your wells. And in particular, you can search for your wells and view the production data really a lot easier than you can on the Arkansas website. I search for the API of that one well that we were looking at earlier. You can see it here. At a glance, we can look at the production data and see that very easily, what the well history looks like, and it's a little bit more graphical. You can see the data here. It might be something where you can download it from the Arkansas website, but just to get a quick look at what is the production for last month, this would be a great way to go and look at that. Other things that it'll tell you is permit information. It'll have the permit number, so you can go and search for that information back on the Oil and Gas Commission website. It'll have information about well tests, things like that, the formations. It does have well history, so it can show you the different operators over time, all that kind of information at a glance. And again, this is just for the entire country. So if you have interests outside of just Arkansas, you can search for everything in one place. It's a useful resource for Arkansas in particular, again, because the website is so slow. Yeah, Justin, anything else before we wrap up on how to use the Arkansas website?
No, I think we've covered most of it, Matt. And like you said, the well database platform is really a great one if you have multiple states that you're dealing with. And if nothing else, you can start there and kind of figure out what questions you should be asking, and then head over to the Arkansas website to answer those specific questions with some permit numbers and so on and so forth. With well database, you could also search by the legal land description. So if you don't know your API number, that's another option that you could do, and then end up getting those numbers to go search for.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of the information is there. It's just a little bit cumbersome. You have to kind of know where to look for some of this information. So hopefully this video helped you cut through some of that noise to find the information for your minerals and royalties in Arkansas. And again, if you are wondering about some of the things we talked about to begin with in terms of your legal description, how to find that lease or deed for your property, we talk about how to do that in my Mineral Management Basics course. I walk you through step by step on how to find those documents, how to make sure that you have everything organized in the way that you can use it to manage your minerals and royalties. And you can find that again at mineralrightspodcast.com/courses. And if you have minerals and royalties in other states, check out some of the other videos linked below. Be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks so much for listening to the Mineral Rights Podcast with your host, Matt Sands. Don't forget to subscribe and share at mineralrightspodcast.com. The Mineral Rights Podcast should not be construed as investment, legal, or tax advice. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy.